Well, the race to replace Governor Gavin Newsom continues to be a nail-biter with no clear front runner among a dozen candidates. And now Democrats are worried there's too many of them in the mix, and that would split the vote in June, which could benefit the two Republican candidates, Steve Hilton and Sheriff Chad Bianco, sending them to the runoff in November. Here to discuss this and so much more is Dan Schnur, professor at the University of California, Berkeley's Institute of Governmental Studies and a professor at USC. Good morning, Dan. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Kate, thanks so much for having me.
So I'm sure you saw the chair of the Democratic State Party made the unusual move this week of calling on some candidates to drop out. Is he right? Are Democrats at risk right now of accidentally getting iced out in the primary?
Well, I mean, one of the real challenges, Kate, of the top two primary system that we have in California is that two candidates from the same party can go on to the general election. In a deep blue state like California, that usually means two Democrats, and we've seen that in Senate races in recent years. But because there are so many Democratic candidates running for governor, 8 as of this morning, and only 2 Republicans, there is a statistically possible chance that the 2 Republicans could finish first and second because all those Democrats split their vote. It's not a big chance. It's probably about 20% or so, 1 in 5. But that's enough to alarm a lot of the Democratic State Party leaders. That's why you saw Hicks's statement yesterday.
Well, and so far, most of the candidates said no thanks, instead announced that they went ahead and filed the paperwork to be on the ballot. Gustavo Arellano of the LA Times had an interesting column about this morning. It's titled, "Too Many Democrats in California Governor's Race. That's a Great Thing." He offered his take on why this race is still wide open, writing, "Those who are running are nice enough, but politically they're carbon copies of each other. As a group, they're as inspiring as printer paper." Dan, at this point, how does someone stand out?
So one of the challenges in any primary, whether within a Democratic or a Republican primary, is differentiating yourself from your opponents as much as you can in a general election. And that's simply because there's a much bigger difference on issues and ideology between the two parties than within the two parties. So it usually tends to happen in primaries is the candidates' biographies, their experience personally, professionally, and politically tends to be what separates them more than the issues. And so for the Democrats, because there are so many other candidates in the field, standing out in that crowded bunch of 7 other candidates just hasn't been easy. That's why the race is so closely bunched at this point.
Well, meanwhile, the California Republican Party is having a field day with all of this. Take a listen to this clip of GOP Chairwoman Corinne Rankin.
You crowned Kamala Harris without a single vote. And now the California Democrat Party is ordering every candidate of color in California to drop out for your 3 establishment favorites. Classic.
She's pointing out that the top 3 Dems right now, according to the polls, are Katie Porter, Congressman Swalwell, and billionaire activist Tom Steyer. So how are Republicans capitalizing on this moment?
Well, you can see how much the Republican Party chair, Corinne Rankin, is enjoying this predicament that the Democrats are in. Because the state party chair, Rusty Hicks, when he called for the candidates to drop out who weren't doing as well in the polls, he certainly didn't reference race or ethnicity. But the chair is absolutely correct. The Republican chair is absolutely correct. The Democratic candidates who are running lowest in the polls right now are Tony Thurmond, the state superintendent, who's Black, Antonia Villaraigosa and Javier Becerra, who are both Latino, and Betty Yee, who's Asian Pacific, while the top-ranking candidates tend to be white, are all white. So it's not a great look for a party that prides itself on its diversity to be making this call, even if that wasn't Hicks's intent.
Right. And then on Twitter this week, Becerra and Villaraigosa were attacking each other, each pointing to the other one to get out of the race. I'm curious, you've worked on political campaigns in the past. Why do some candidates stay in the race when they're polling in the single digits?
Well, because there are so many Democrats running, it's important to remember that the first and second place finishers in the polls right now are only running at about 14, 15%. So if you're one of those Democrats running in the mid-single digits, a candidate like Becerra or Villaraigosa, you're only 7, 8, 9 points out of the lead. That's not that far back, particularly when you have roughly a third of the electorate that's still undecided. The challenge, though, for Becerra and Villaraigosa is while they certainly bring many other attributes to the race, both are Latino men. If one or the other was in the race, it could probably be running, that individual could probably be running pretty close to the front runners. But because they're splitting the vote, they're both much further back in the pack.
All right, we have about half a minute left, Dan, for you to tell the Democrats, how does someone catch fire at this point and pull off a victory?
Well, at this point, the Democratic Party leaders probably do need to step in. But the answer isn't Rusty Hicks. It's Alex Padilla, it's Adam Schiff, it's Nancy Pelosi, and most importantly, it's Gavin Newsom. If the California's leading Democrats want to eliminate the possibility of 2 Republicans ending up in the runoff, you would think that the governor and the state's 2 U.S. senators would be weighing in sometime soon, too.
Great insight. Dan Schnur, professor at the University of California, Berkeley's Institute of Government Studies and at USC, and my professor. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining us this morning.
Just a couple years ago. Great to see you, Kate.
Just a couple years. All right. Well,
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage. And click the subscribe button here. You can also download our app and watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.